You glance at your bathroom mirror every morning without a second thought. You check your teeth, you fix your hair, you move on. But for centuries, the people who actually made that mirror were dying to give it to you. Not figuratively, literally. Here's the part nobody tells you. Before glass mirrors existed the way you know them, people saw their reflections in polished metal, still water, or dark obsidian. Blurry, distorted. Honest, in a strange way, because they couldn't lie to you clearly. Then, in the 1500s, a group of glassmakers on the island of Murano, near Venice, figured out something that would change how humanity saw itself. Quite literally. They discovered that if you coated the back of a sheet of glass with a mixture of tin and mercury, the surface would reflect light with astonishing clarity. Suddenly you weren't looking at a smudge of yourself, you were looking at you. The Venetian government understood immediately what they had. This wasn't just craft, it was power. So they did something drastic. They forced Murano's mirror makers to live on the island under constant watch, forbidden from leaving, forbidden from teaching the process to outsiders, under threat of death if they defected. The historian Sabine Melchior Bonnet, who wrote extensively on the cultural history of the mirror, described this as one of the first true trade monopolies in European history, one guarded with the same intensity as a military secret. But the danger wasn't just political, it was physical. And this is where it gets dark. Mercury vapor is a neurotoxin. The glassmakers who spent their days brushing that tin mercury amalgam onto glass were breathing it in for hours, day after day, year after year. Tremors, hallucinations, memory loss, early death. The very thing that let humanity finally see itself clearly was, for the people making it, slowly poisoning their minds. Sound familiar? It should. This is the same mercury exposure that gave us the phrase "mad as a hatter" from felt hat makers exposed to similar chemicals centuries later. Two completely different industries. The same silent killer. Mark Pendergrast, who spent years researching the cultural history of reflection for his book on the subject, has pointed out something unsettling. The mirror didn't just reflect people back to themselves. It reshaped how they thought about identity, vanity, and self-image. At the exact same time, the objects were quietly killing the workers who built them. Would you still want one on your bathroom wall if you'd watched it made? Because it doesn't stop there. Once mirrors became more common in European homes by the 1600s and 1700s, they picked up something else. Superstition. Specifically, superstition about death. If someone in the household died, mirrors throughout the house were immediately covered with black cloth, not for decoration, out of fear. The belief, documented across English, German, and American mourning traditions, was that a mirror could trap the soul of the newly deceased as it left the body, preventing it from moving on. Some believed an uncovered mirror might even reflect the spirit of the dead back into the room, or worse, let it pull a living soul through with it. The scholar Deborah Lutz, who has studied Victorian death customs extensively, has noted that mirror covering wasn't a fringe folk practice. It was mainstream, practiced by ordinary families across social classes, treated with the same seriousness as stopping the clocks in a house of mourning. Think about that the next time you walk past a mirror without a thought in your head. For most of history, that same object was treated as a doorway, one that had to be closed the moment death entered a home. And that old superstition, the fear of a mirror capturing something that shouldn't be captured, didn't disappear. It just changed shape. It became the story that breaking a mirror brings 7 years of bad luck, a belief traced back even further, to Roman ideas that the soul renewed itself physically every 7 years, and that shattering your reflection shattered a piece of that cycle. None of this was random. None of it was decorative. Every rule, every superstition, every guarded secret on that island of Murano existed, because people genuinely believed the mirror held something. Power. Danger. Maybe even a piece of you. By the 1800s, industrial glass production finally made mirrors safe, cheap, and mercury-free, using silver instead. That's the version hanging in your bathroom right now. Harmless, mass-produced, utterly unremarkable. But it wasn't always harmless. It wasn't always ordinary. It was once a monopoly enforced by threat of execution, built by workers who were poisoning themselves without knowing it, and treated by everyday families as an object dangerous enough to blind with cloth the moment death walked through the door. So the next time you catch your own reflection first thing in the morning, half awake, barely paying attention, remember what that glass used to cost. Remember who used to die making it and what people once feared it could steal. You're not just looking at yourself. You're looking at one of the strangest, most dangerous objects humans ever decided they couldn't live without.